Hello, lifters and listeners. Welcome back to the Lift Her Up podcast. I'm your host, Latrice. If this is your first time listening, then welcome. And if you've been listening and watching for a while, then welcome back. Thank you guys so much for your continued support of the channel with your likes, shares, subscribing, and just getting the word out there about the channel. Last week, I took another little break. So this episode might be a little bit different from what you all are used to hearing from me, just because I want to be as honest and transparent as possible. It's kind of been a struggle bus season a little bit. I haven't heard that term in a while, but struggle bus the last few weeks or so. And I just wanted to come on and be honest and show up in this space that God has given me, and just share everything that's been going on and what I've been learning in this season. So there's been a lot of pressure, I feel, not just for myself, but a lot of people have just been experiencing this increased and heightened pressure in life, just to perform, to pursue our call and the purpose that God has for us, right? And in this season, I felt this pressure just to show up and do the things that God has called me to do. And I've been reevaluating my yes to God, and just in moments battling doubt and all this different warfare that the enemy has been sending my way to my mind and everything like that. And I really wanted to talk about that and the power of surrendering to God, and why he thinks that is important to us. So a lot of times in our faith, us as believers, we talk about giving our yes to God, and our yes is usually our call, is usually our assignment, right? But we don't talk about the continual yes, the yeses that we have to make on a day-to-day basis in every season with every act of obedience, right? So I wanted to talk about the continual yes, because yes is not just a one-time thing. We will always have multiple yeses in our lifetime. So you say yes to Christ, awesome. Now the Lord is going to be like, okay, now what are you going to do in my name? You going to say yes to that too? So talking about that yes. And right now I'm in the place where I feel that weight and the warfare behind the yes that I've given. Are you feeling the same way? Is that something that you can identify with, where you know what God has called you to do? You know he's called you to do a thing. You might be clear on what he's told you to do, but you don't feel like showing up for the job. Like you don't feel like doing the role. You feel overwhelmed and stressed and pressured and boggled down by all these different things that are going on. Like, have you been there? Am I alone? I don't think I am, because we are not, no experience we have as humans is ever strictly for one person. You know, if we're going through it singularly, then there are bound to be other people that are experiencing it as well. So I know there's somebody else that is going through this too. So let me know in the comments if you are in a season like this, just to let me know if you're in the same boat. If you're in the same boat. And I'm learning that with the battling of the yes and feeling that overwhelmment, I can sometimes get into modes of self-sabotage, and meaning that you don't do all the things that you're supposed to do, or all the things that you know you're supposed to do. You like ease up on disciplines that you know you should firmly have in place, right? And it's just because you're not seeing the outcome that you desire. You're not seeing the things that you want or that you hope for, or the timing is not working out when you think it should be working out. So it's like, okay, well, instead of going with what I've been doing, let me just ease up and not do anything at all. Because again, the overwhelm is screaming at you like, why are you doing this? Why do you keep showing up for this? Like, why? And the physical evidence that you have, it doesn't seem to be adding up to much, but just trying to stay encouraged through the journey right now. But yeah, just that feeling of just not wanting to show up. And God has been reminding me that He places us in certain seasons and in certain situations because He is trying to reveal to us where our weaknesses are and where our idols are. Really, the places that we lack faith, the places that we lack belief, and the places that we are placing something over Him and over His rule and govern in our lives. So me, for instance, my idol is control, right? Like my idol is hyper independence. It's the feeling of wanting to do things a certain way, of being particular, of being self-sufficient. And those aren't things that I'm ashamed of saying anymore just because they are tied to my weaknesses. And scripture tells us, Paul tells us, that we should boast in our weaknesses because that's where God comes in and He perfects it, right? And the need for control always stems to some sort of trauma. And the origin may not be ill-intended, but it just turns out that it has more damage. It does more damage than it does good. The fact is, the control issue is because I want things done a certain way and I want to see the success of those things, right? But then it also doesn't give God an opportunity to show what He can do. It doesn't give me an opportunity to prove my faith to God, prove my trust to God, that I trust Him to do the things that He's said He's going to do. And many of us are also struggling with different idols in our lives. Yours might not be the same things that I suffer with, hyper independence and just trying to conquer everything on your own. You may have your own thing, and that is completely fine. But the reason I want to talk about this is because many of us are fighting with these issues with the wrong weapons. Like we're trying to combat these things that are trying to suffocate our calling the wrong way. So instead of us giving it to God, we actually lean into those behaviors that are comfortable to us, which only further pulls us back. It only leaves us stagnant. It only plateaus us, like it doesn't prompt us forward. It just hinders us. And that is exactly what the enemy wants. We want to escape the discomfort and the pain that we feel in these moments that God brings us through because we want to feel the comfort even though we're going into unknown places and unknown realms, right? But God will make it so that even in the midst of discomfort, we can trust Him and rely on Him in a way, and He'll give us a peace even when we're experiencing a form of chaos all around us, even if it's for a glimpse of time, even if it's for a moment of time. And really the habits that we go back to, the things that we do, the hyper independence, the untrustworthiness of God, us trying to rely on ourselves and the methods that we had before Him, it's only a band-aid, and it only leads to like a illegitimate outcome. Like it's not something that's going to be long lasting at all. And the Lord wants us to not have a temporary satisfaction in Him and in our lives, but He wants us to have a fullness, like abundance, In his presence is the fullness of joy. So God does not want us to have a half joy. He doesn't want us to have half of a thing. He wants us to fully be satisfied in everything that we do unto him, of course. So we cannot continue to offer these half surrenders, like these half sacrifice to him, and thinking that we're going to get the outcome that he promised us, like a complete blessed outcome, I should say. So if you want the fullness of the blessing, you have to be able to put in the fullness of your sacrifice and your surrender. So we have to surrender to God fully, because it's the only way to successfully manage and sustain our yes within our journey and within our calling. So, what I mean by that is our surrender puts our hearts and our emotions subject to Christ. So, that means we have to surrender all day, every day. When you wake up, you surrender. You're surrendering your ideas, you're surrendering your plans, every imagination that you have. You are surrendering all thoughts, all feelings, all emotions, every second, every minute, every hour. It has to be a continuous thing. And sometimes when you are a naturally avoidant person, like I'll use myself again as an example, I tend to avoid certain things, like I would love to go around this pain. I would love to go around this discomfort, Lord. So I'm just going to ignore it and pretend that it's not there. But I can't do that, because when I'm alone with God, he forces me to confront myself in ways that I've never had to before. And that can lead to a distraction in my devotion time with the Lord, which is a place the enemy really tries to play with me, honestly. So it comes a time where you just have to try different things, try new tactics in the different seasons that you're in. So what works for one season may not work for the other. And as you advance, I'm learning this, as you advance, you'll have to pick up new things along the way, and also be aware where the enemy is going to try to attack you. So again, naturally avoidant as far as pain and discomfort, and wanting to address anything, honestly, that has to do with my pain. So it's very hard for me to surrender to God when I'm feeling away at times, because I'm like, Lord, I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to think about it. I don't want to think about it. I won't talk about it. Like, I won't do nothing, right? But God, he's pushing me to say, hey, like, just sit with me for a minute. Try to do a little bit. Like, we overcomplicate this thing so bad. And I'm gonna get into some ideas that have come across, that I've been working on, that have been helping me through this process. But the surrendering, it's difficult, but it's not as difficult as we think it is. And it's necessary, because it leaves us open to God, it leaves us honest with God, and it holds us accountable to him. So it's that check-in system again. But with surrender, we need to learn how to practically walk out these steps. So like I said, I want to get into this, and we overcomplicate this. Surrender starts with acknowledging God, who he is, all the things he's done for us, and then going to him, listening, releasing, and getting informed by him. So that means that we have to be intentional with our time with God. We have to be intentional with praying to him, with talking to him. We have to be intentional with listening to whatever it is that he has to say, so he can give us strategy and wisdom and downloads and just comfort overall. Because a lot of times the Lord wants to minister to us too. Like, not every time is it going to be a strategy that you leave the prayer closet with. Sometimes it'll just be a ministering word to encourage you and to strengthen you, to help you get through the moment even if it's just a moment, just to help you get through the moment overall. But you have to practice getting into the presence of God, and that is so important. And again, that can be hard when you're avoidant of your pain and discomfort because you don't want to be confronted with it. But I encourage you to press in anyway. Press into the Lord anyway, because He will reward you for it, and He will beyond bandage your wounds, but He will carry you through it. He will carry you through it. And some of these ideas I got from I was listening to the God Plus Mental Health podcast. Is one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to. The host is Rosalind Renee. Shout out to you, girl. But she is a therapist, and on one of her recent episodes, she was giving ideas on how to carve out time for God in the midst of all of our busyness and everything, right? And a few of the ideas have been very, very helpful to me in this season. So one of the first things is to create intentional time to talk to God. And this could be in your car, on your way to work, on your way from work, while you're dropping the kids off and carpool, whatever. If you're just sitting in traffic, in the car, if you're walking on a walk, if you're at the gym, just spending some quiet time with God, just to talk to Him, just to hear what He has to say, just to see how He's doing, let Him know how you're feeling, and go about your day. So inviting Him in. And sometimes it can be hard to carve out hours at a time to just pray. And I struggled with that when I first started walking with the Lord. Like, oh God, like, do I have to pray, be on my face, be on my knees, like praying for like 12 hours a day? But no, you don't have to be necessarily in that posture to pray and talk to God. Just chipping little moments here and there out just to talk to Him and just to hear what He has to say. And over time, if once you feel strengthened enough, once the Lord has strengthened your spirit enough, you can add more time onto that, and you'll be looking for more moments to carve out with Him. Another idea is to read a devotional a day. So find you a good devotional, whether it's a book or your favorite website, your favorite blog site, favorite writer, whatever. Read a devotional a day. They're very short, like 3 minutes tops, just to help get your mind regulated on the day and what the Lord has to say and what He may be wanting to speak to you on about the day. But that's just another way to invite the Lord in. This next one, I've been using this. Read a psalm or a proverb a day and match the day to the date. So, example, I'm recording this on the 30th. So, today I'll read Psalm 30 or Proverbs 30. Also with the Gospels. So, I don't think all the Gospels have 30 books, but correlated to the date. Read the 30th chapter of one of the Gospels. And that way you can get some wisdom, you can get some Jesus in there. Sometimes you're not going to feel like opening up your Bible every day, but when you have some sense of discipline, some plan in place, like, okay, Lord, I may not feel necessarily, like ready or wanting to read this today. I don't even feel led to read a specific thing today. Or maybe you haven't read your Bible in a while. Like that happens. We get off track. That happens. Don't hold yourself in condemnation. I promise the Lord is not wagging His finger at you. But that's just a practical way that you can get back into reading your word and feeding your spirits with what the Lord has to say. Next thing is set a timer and journal your thoughts for 5 minutes. This has been profoundly helpful to me in this season because a lot of times, again, I'm not wanting to talk about my emotions at all, but I force myself to write it down, and the Lord will force me to write down what I may be experiencing. I set a timer, say whatever it is I have to say, what I'm feeling, and that's it. That's how I go through my day. Lastly, be still and listen to praise and worship music. This has helped me a lot as well. It doesn't even it doesn't even have to be a full playlist or anything. You don't have to listen to an album on repeat, nothing like that, okay? I mean, like, sometimes all you need is one good song, okay, to just shift your whole entire spirit, your whole entire mindset, okay, just to get your foot tapping and your spirit jumping. But I've literally had to do that sometimes where I'm just sitting at my desk and I'm like, Lord, I don't feel like this right now. What can I do? What can I do? And he'll just say, hey, play this song. And I'll just play it and I'll listen to it again. Just let something minister to you for a moment. Let something minister to you. Sometimes it's not all about what you do, but just like sitting and resting and simply, again, simple ways to invite God in, to invite him in and to let him know that at least we're trying, Lord, like I'm trying to make it through this thing, right? Simple ways. Last week, speaking of journaling, the Lord told me to write down all the things that I was fearful about in that moment. And I did. I cried while I was writing, and that's not uncommon for me, okay, because writing is very therapeutic for me. But it was hard for me to write it down because, again, it was forcing me to confront those things. I partnered that with listening to worship music in the background. So while I was writing, I was listening to worship music, instrumentals, worship instrumentals, all the things like that. But in that moment, it helped me to release the things that I was holding in my spirit, in my soul, in my body, and I was able to release that tension. So my problems didn't go away immediately or anything like that, but it was an action, it was a signal to God that, hey, like I'm willing to do this and put in this work. I'm willing to do this and put in this work. And even if you are to say, like, Lord, like I feel scared, I know you got me. I know you have my back, but please just help me to surrender to you more deeply. I believe that the Lord is going to honor that. I truly do. I truly do. And sometimes our journal is our altar. Sometimes our car is our altar. Sometimes our desk is our altar. Our office is our altar. Wherever it is where you are being honest with God and you give that exchange to Him, that is your altar. And the Lord is going to honor that space and is going to honor that time. So I really want the message here to be to trust God and to keep surrendering to Him, even when you don't feel like it. So keep walking the path that He has given you. Do not walk away from your calling. Please do not give up in this season. I'm talking to myself too. Y'all, this is hard. It's tough being out here in these streets and living for the Lord, but do not give up on God. He still has a plan and a promise for you, and He is going to fulfill it. You just have to stay the course, okay? You surrendering, you walking in obedience, it is providing security for your calling, and it is providing security for your future and your destiny, okay? And I really just want that to settle in all of our spirits. That's everything I really wanted to talk about today. How to practically apply surrender in our day-to-day lives. It doesn't have to be anything huge. It can be very simple. Please surrender always. Give up never. It's tough, but we got it, and God has got us. I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed this word. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay encouraged.